Aanya Ravel never imagined that saying yes to Rihan Vale's party invitation would lead her into the darkest night of her life, one that would expose hidden grudges, unseen enemies, and a chilling plan that nearly killed her before sunrise. Aanya Ravel stepped out of her hostel, building with a mix of excitement and nervousness, something she rarely felt. She had always been the type who preferred quiet evenings with books, but after months of watching others find their place socially, she convinced herself to try something new. Rihan Vale's invitation appeared at the perfect moment. He was well known on campus, a final-year student with charm, confidence, and a reputation for throwing parties in the outskirts of the city. For someone like Aanya, who often felt invisible in crowded classrooms, being noticed by him felt strangely validating. She told herself the gathering would be harmless and maybe even fun. The suburban address he gave her looked remote on the map. She trusted him because he had helped her during her first week at college when she struggled to find her classes. That memory made her believe he was someone safe to be around. The ride to the party house took longer than she expected. The streets grew quieter, the houses more spread out, and the glow of the main city faded behind her. When she finally reached the house, she paused at the gate, observing the place. It was larger than she imagined, with narrow windows glowing in orange and pink hues. Music thumped from inside, creating vibrations under her feet. Several students she vaguely recognized walked in and out, carrying drinks and laughing loudly. Even though she felt hesitant, she forced herself to step forward. She reminded herself that this was her chance to be part of something instead of standing on the sidelines inside the house. The atmosphere felt overwhelming. The lights flickered in neon shades that made people appear distorted as they moved. The smell of smoke, perfume, and alcohol blended into a heavy haze. Aanya found it difficult to breathe normally at first, but she kept going, afraid of appearing awkward. She wandered through the rooms, noticing groups clustered together on couches, staircases crowded with people taking pictures, and a kitchen where bottles covered every counter. She tried to look calm, but deep inside she felt out of place. Every unfamiliar face added to her unease. Rihan eventually appeared, surrounded by a circle of students who seemed drawn to him. He acknowledged her from a distance, which gave her a small sense of comfort. Yet instead of walking toward her, he drifted deeper into the house. Disappearing through a hallway she hadn't noticed before, she hesitated to follow. Something in the way he moved felt different from how he behaved on campus, as though the party amplified a darker side of him. She pushed the thought away and blamed it on her lack of social experience. As the night continued, Aanya wandered toward the backyard hoping for fresh air. The yard was dim, lit only by a few hanging bulbs. The distant noise from the house created a strange sense of isolation. She noticed a woman leaning against the railing, watching the crowd with sharp focus. Her name, as Aanya would later learn, was Sarika Mondell, a student from another department. At the moment, Aanya simply sensed that the woman's gaze wasn't casual. It was observant, almost as if she were studying every movement around her. Aanya couldn't tell whether Sarika's seriousness was threatening or protective, but the energy unsettled her. She returned inside, feeling slightly lightheaded. The longer she remained in the crowded rooms, the more disoriented she became. Her heartbeat felt irregular, her legs unsteady, and her vision clouded around the edges. She assumed it was simply exhaustion or the heat inside the house. She grabbed a glass of water from a table, but even lifting it felt harder than it should have. A cold wave of panic spread through her body as she realized something was wrong. The music seemed to echo inside her skull, and faces around her blurred together. She tried to walk toward the nearest wall for support, but the floor shifted beneath her feet. Before she could understand what was happening, her knees buckled. The last thing she remembered was the sensation of someone stepping close, a faint chemical smell near her face, and the lights above her dissolving into darkness. The atmosphere inside the house grew, even more chaotic as the night progressed, making it easy for anyone to slip away unnoticed. New groups kept arriving. Music blasted from a different set of speakers in every room. The constant movement of people blurred into an overwhelming rhythm. Because of this, Anya's disappearance did not raise immediate concern. Many assumed she had gone outside for air or joined another group upstairs. The noise swallowed any sense of order. The dim lighting made it difficult to distinguish who was where. Rihan moved through the crowd with an expression that seemed calm on the surface, but something in his body language hinted at discomfort. He occasionally glanced toward the back hallway, the one he had disappeared into earlier, as if checking whether anyone noticed. He made his way around the house, speaking to people briefly, giving the impression of being attentive, yet his eyes kept drifting back toward that same door. Despite his popularity, few paid attention to him closely enough to notice his subtle urgency. Sarika Mondel, however, noticed. She had been standing near the staircase, watching the crowd more than participating in it. She had come to the party out of obligation rather than enjoyment, dragged along by friends who later left her alone in the chaos. Sarika was the type who observed quietly, and she sensed early on that something felt wrong inside the house. Her unease intensified when she spotted Aanya earlier, looking uncomfortable and isolated. Now, with the night halfway gone, she realized she had not seen her since. A faint metallic sound echoed from the back hallway, too soft to catch the attention of the partying crowd, but sharp enough for Sarika to turn her head. She saw the end of the hallway dimly lit, the door at the far end slightly ajar before it clicked shut. Her instincts urged her to check it out. She moved carefully through the crowd, staying out of Rihan's direct line of vision. The closer she came to the hallway, the more the energy shifted. The music sounded distant here, muffled by thick walls. The air felt heavier, as if it carried secrets. When she reached the locked door, she noticed faint scratches near the handle, as though someone had tampered with it recently. A burnt smell lingered in the air, mixed with something chemical and unsettling. Sarika pressed her ear against the door and heard nothing. She tried the handle, but it refused to turn. Her heartbeat quickened as she stepped back and examined the narrow gap between the door and the floor. A dim flicker of movement caught her eyeshadow shifting inside the room. She realized she needed help. But if she called out loudly, she might attract the wrong kind of attention. Instead, she quietly slipped back into the hallway and pretended to be searching for a restroom when a group passed by. Once they were gone, she used a hairpin to try to pick the lock. It took longer than she expected, her fingers trembling every few seconds. But eventually, the mechanism clicked. The smell hit her immediately when the door swung open. It was sharper and heavier than before, a mix of alcohol fumes, burnt plastic, and cleaning chemicals. The small room looked purposely neglected. Boxes were stacked against the walls, and the windows were covered with thick curtains that blocked out all light. A mattress lay on the floor, and on it, Anya's unconscious body rested unnaturally still. Sarika froze for a moment, her breath catching in her throat. Anya's skin had lost its natural color, replaced by a pale, almost bluish tone. There was a deep wound on the side of her head, partially dried but still fresh enough to signal recent violence. Beside her, a discarded bottle leaked a clear fluid onto the floor, its label scratched off intentionally. The room seemed prepared to hide her until morning, or perhaps longer. As Sarika stepped closer, she noticed Anya's chest rising faintly, struggling for air. She knelt beside her, trying to assess the situation. The chemical smell around Anya suggested she had been drugged with something far more dangerous than alcohol. Sarika's hand shook as she felt the pulse weak. But present, every instinct screamed that she had discovered something she should not have seen. The silence in the room felt heavy, like a warning. Someone had gone to great lengths to conceal Anya here, and that someone might still be nearby. Sarika forced herself to stay calm, knowing she had only moments to decide what to do next. Sarika stayed kneeling beside Anya for several seconds, trying to gather her thoughts. While the muffled music throbbed through the walls like a reminder of how unaware everyone else in the house remained, the contrast between the lively chaos outside and the frightening stillness inside. This locked room made everything feel surreal. She pressed her hand lightly against Anya's forehead, feeling the unnatural coldness beneath her skin. The faint rise and fall of her chest brought a small sense of relief, but it was clear she was rapidly deteriorating. Sarika realized she had no time to waste. If she hesitated for even a minute, Anya might not survive long enough to receive help. The first challenge was getting Anya out of the room without drawing attention. The hallway outside remained narrow and poorly lit, but the party noise made it likely that someone could appear at any moment. Sarika quickly scanned the room, looking for anything she could use. In the corner, she found an old blanket stuffed inside a crate. She pulled it out, shook off the dust, and wrapped it around Aanya as carefully as she could. Lifting her was difficult. Anya's body was limp and heavier than Sarika expected. She struggled to balance her weight, trying to avoid any sudden noises that might alert whoever had placed Aanya there, as Sarika dragged her toward the door. Her heart pounded continuously. Every creak of the floorboards felt louder than it should have been. She paused at the doorway and peeked into the hallway. The coast seemed clear. The dim lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that made the corridor look endless. Sarika took a deep breath and began moving. The blanket muffled the sound of Anya's body sliding across the floor, but Sarika still felt exposed. As if invisible eyes watched her every step, by the time she reached the end of the hallway, her arms felt weak from the effort. She adjusted her grip and used her shoulder to push open the back door leading to the yard. The night air hit her immediately cold, crisp, and strangely comforting after the suffocating atmosphere inside. She pulled Aanya onto the grass and rested for a moment, her breaths sharp and uneven. The party noise continued behind her, a reminder that danger still lingered close. Sarika stood up to scan the backyard. Lights hung loosely along the fence, some flickering as if they were close to burning out. The shadows danced across the ground, making her feel as though someone could be hiding behind any corner. Her car was parked just outside the back gate, a short distance away. She knew she had to get Aanya there quickly. She began dragging Aanya again, inch by inch across the yard. The grass rustled softly, and the blanket slid over the uneven ground. When she pushed open the wooden gate, it creaked loudly. Sarika's heart jumped, and she looked behind her immediately. A figure stood at the edge of the backyard near the house, partially obscured by shadows. She froze. It took her a moment to recognize him, Umesh Kataria, one of Rihan's closest friends. He was watching her. His posture suggested he had been standing there for longer than she realized. She forced herself to remain calm as she lifted Aanya into her car. Though her movements became clumsy under the pressure of Umesh's presence, he didn't say anything or move closer. He simply observed, his expression unreadable. Sarika couldn't tell whether he was confused, suspicious, or deliberately monitoring her escape. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was he involved? Was he guarding the back of the property on purpose? Or had he simply wandered out without understanding what he had stumbled upon? Once Aanya was inside the car, Sarika shut the door as quietly as possible. She got into the driver's seat, hands trembling as she inserted the key. As she drove away, she kept her eyes on the rearview mirror. Umesh remained standing in the same spot, his silhouette shrinking with distance. His stillness terrified her more than if he had chased after her. It suggested he knew something but chose not to interfere. Perhaps waiting for someone else to handle the situation? When Sarika finally reached the main road, she accelerated, her breath shaking as she exhaled. The bright lights of passing cars and the open space around her provided a small sense of security. She glanced at Aanya, whose breathing had grown shallower. The urgency returned, pushing Sarika to focus. She headed straight toward the nearest emergency center, hoping desperately that she had arrived in time to save a life that had been only minutes away from disappearing forever. Doctors rushed Aanya into the emergency unit the moment Sarika arrived, and the hospital corridor filled with urgent footsteps and clipped instructions. Sarika stood frozen near the entrance, her clothes stained with dirt from dragging Aanya through the yard. The fluorescent lights made everything feel harsher, too bright, too real. Nurses moved quickly, pushing Aanya on a stretcher while checking her pulse, oxygen levels, and breathing patterns. One nurse mentioned that the injuries indicated possible poisoning combined with physical trauma. The words clung to the air heavily, confirming that what Sarika had witnessed in that locked room was no accident. A doctor approached her for immediate details, and Sarika relayed everything she remembered from the strange atmosphere in the house to the locked room. The smell of chemicals and the unconscious body she found. She explained how she got Aanya out and pointed out the suspicious behavior of Umesh Kataria. Her account was taken seriously, and within minutes, the police were notified. Soon after, 2 officers arrived to question her more formally, guiding her to a quieter corner of the waiting area. The noise of the hospital machines behind them formed a distant hum as she repeated her story again. This time with more clarity now that she had a chance to breathe. The officers listened carefully and documented everything. They didn't interrupt her or express doubt, which made Sarika feel that the situation was even more severe than she initially realized. Another officer returned moments later with an update. Aanya had been moved to the intensive care unit. Her condition was critical, but the medical team was attempting to stabilize her. Sarika felt a mixture of relief and fear. She had saved Aanya from being left alone in that room. But she did not know if she had made it in time to prevent permanent damage. Once the immediate medical concerns were addressed, the officers shifted their focus to the location of the incident. They asked Sarika for the address, which she provided, and within minutes, a patrol unit was dispatched to secure the property. Investigators quickly followed, knowing that evidence could disappear if they delayed. The suburban house was still full of students when the police arrived, and the sudden appearance of flashing lights caused a wave of confusion across the property. Many tried to leave, only to be stopped as the area was sealed off for questioning inside the house. The investigators found the back hallway exactly as Sarika described. The locked room contained the mattress, the spilled chemical bottle, and the burned-smelling residue she noticed earlier. Forensic teams snapped photographs of everything, collected samples from the floor, and dusted objects for fingerprints. Behind the property, near the trash bins, officers discovered half-burned wipes, fabric scraps, and pieces of clothing with stains on them. Someone had tried to eliminate evidence, but the job was rushed and incomplete. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sarika remained in the waiting area as officers cross-checked names of attendees found at the party. Rihan was located first, standing among the confused crowd outside the house. His calm demeanor shifted into unease when officers separated him from the others for questioning. He denied knowing anything about Anya's disappearance, insisting that she must have wandered off on her own. But investigators had already viewed the security footage taken from the gate camera earlier in the evening. Though grainy, it showed Rihan entering the back hallway before Aanya vanished from the main floor. His presence near the hidden room created suspicion that he could not easily explain. Umesh Kataria, on the other hand, claimed he was simply taking fresh air near the driveway when Sarika left the house. However, he couldn't explain why he didn't alert anyone when he saw her dragging someone unconscious. His vague responses and tense posture intensified the investigators' interest. Then came an unexpected twist. Fingerprints found inside the hidden room matched someone who had not been seen at the party at all that night, Zara Matani, a former student removed from the college months earlier. Her name had not appeared on any guest lists, nor had anyone mentioned her presence. The discovery complicated the situation, creating multiple possible motives and suspects. Officers knew the case was far from straightforward. Each new detail hinted at a deeper, more tangled web of deception, revenge, and hidden agendas waiting to be uncovered. As investigators expanded their search, the tangled truth behind Anya's collapse began to unravel in unexpected ways. Zara Matani's fingerprint match became the first major turning point. Her sudden connection to the hidden room shifted the focus of the investigation away from a simple assault and toward a complex sequence of events fueled by old grudges, secret plans, and intersecting motives. Zara had left the college under controversial circumstances after an incident involving Rihan and a group of seniors. Rumors circulated at the time, but no official complaint was ever filed. Her abrupt disappearance from campus life made many forget her, but the investigators quickly realized she had not forgotten the people who wronged her. When officers searched her small apartment, they found notebooks filled with detailed notes about Rihan's habits, parties, and associations. One notebook contained hand-drawn layouts of the suburban house, including the exact location of the locked room where Aanya had been found. Inside another notebook, officers found something more alarming: written goals that described exposing Rihan through undeniable evidence of wrongdoing. The notes revealed that Zara had been monitoring him for weeks. Following his social media, tracking his party events, and even collecting recordings of rumors from other students. These discoveries painted a picture of a young woman consumed by resentment and a desire to unmask someone she believed had escaped accountability too easily. However, investigators also noticed inconsistencies in her notes specifically. Entry written the day before the party that described her plan to attend the event disguised among the crowd. Despite no witness recalling her presence, when Zara was located and brought in for questioning, she initially maintained a calm, almost detached posture. She explained that she went to the party only to protect potential victims, convinced that Rihan would eventually repeat his alleged past behavior. She claimed she followed Aanya from a distance after noticing Rihan's attention toward her, insisting she only intended to keep an eye on the situation. But when investigators asked about the chemicals found in the locked room, her expression faltered. The toxic mixture identified in Anya's system was a highly specific compound, one that was unexpectedly linked to the laboratory supplies at Zara's workplace. Records confirmed she had access to substances that could produce the symptoms Anya suffered. Faced with this evidence, Zara's narrative began to break apart. Investigators theorized that she had waited for the right moment when Anya appeared vulnerable and isolated inside the party. In the confusion of the night, and with loud music masking movement, she could have easily slipped into the hallway unseen. Her fingerprints suggested she had been inside the hidden room long before Rihan wandered near it. Zara had likely poisoned Anya, intending to leave her there until morning. When the discovery would cause a scandal involving Rihan, the goal seemed to be reputation destruction rather than murder. But the dosage she used pushed Anya dangerously close to death. Simultaneously, the evidence against Rihan remained unclear. The footage only showed him entering the hallway earlier in the evening, but nothing directly tied him to harming Anya. Under pressure, he admitted he had used the locked room in the past during parties to store illegal substances. Explaining the burnt wipes and chemical smells, he claimed he had not placed Anya there and insisted he panicked when he noticed she was missing. His confession to other unrelated misconduct allowed investigators to charge him with separate offenses. But it also clarified that he was not the one who poisoned her. As Zara's story crumbled, she finally broke down and admitted she acted alone, convinced that framing Rihan would bring her justice after years of staying silent. Her resentment and obsession had blinded her to the consequences. She never anticipated that Sarika would discover Anya early, or that the situation would escalate to such a severe medical crisis. Days later, Anya opened her eyes in the hospital, weak but conscious. She could not remember anything after feeling dizzy at the party, and the doctors assured her the memory loss was expected. Sarika sat beside her, relieved that her quick actions had saved a life. Outside the room, officers finalized the charges. Zara was taken into custody for attempted murder and premeditated poisoning, while Rihan and Omesh faced separate charges relating to illegal activities tied to the party. The case spread quickly through the college community, shocking students who never imagined how many hidden motives had collided in one night. Anya's story became a haunting reminder of how fragile safety can be when trust is misplaced, and how dangerous the quiet plans of a single obsessed mind can become. The suburban party that began as a night of celebration would forever be remembered as one of the most chilling and unexpected crimes the campus had ever witnessed.